Dude, I'm sorry I'm a little late. Dude, I literally get in my car. Not my car. My daughter's car. And I put my coffee down. I don't drink out of like a travel cup.
This is your problem.
I don't like the feel of it on my mouth.
Okay.
So anyway, so I put the coffee down, I start the car, and then the coffee falls. So then it spills coffee all over. It spills coffee all over the leather seats of the passenger side. So now I'm freaking out. If someone came and attacked me or tried to steal my car in my driveway, like I would have been an absolute mess. It would take me a while. I was not very observant about my surroundings. There's coffee everywhere on this. So I had to find tissues. I almost ripped my shirt off to to dry it up. Thankfully, it doesn't look too bad.
So what did you...
I found tissues.
Oh, you just found tissues in the car?
In the car. In the glove box.
So now there's just a big
stain
mess of tissues with coffee stains
laying
in the car.
Yeah,
you didn't clean it up or anything.
That's why I'm running a little late. Sorry, getting here to the studio took me a little bit.
That's all right. I got into a cruiser one time, and someone had dumped their coffee all over the switches to turn on the lights and the siren and everything.
That's the best.
And all over the center console, there was coffee in the cup holders. There was like an inch of coffee in the back, on the floor in the back,
right?
Because it had run down. It was a mess. And I was furious.
Yeah, what
I'm
a jerk.
How can you not clean up after yourself? I know who the guy is. Because
did you confront him?
No, I didn't know who.
Never.
I didn't know who it was. So I went up. I think I talked to a supervisor and was like, "Who handed this car in overnight?"
Yeah.
Found out who it was. Told him what the problem was. I'm trying to remember the order. I think I went up and I said, "Do you know who had the car overnight or the shift before I started?"
Right.
And the supervisor was like, "Why?" And I said, "Because there's coffee everywhere in the car." So then that supervisor, I wasn't trying to like tattletale on anyone, but that supervisor then went to that guy instead of just telling me who it was so I could go have the confrontation. He went to that guy. So then that guy got mad at me because he's like, "Oh, you just went right to a supervisor."
That's awesome.
I'm like, don't get mad at me for this. You're the one who dumped coffee everywhere all over this car and made me deal with it. Yeah. What are you looking for?
I lost my phone.
Well, go find it.
I have notes on it, dude.
Go find it.
Well, I know exactly where it is.
Okay.
I'm out of my routine, dude. This coffee thing got me. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Where was it? In your car?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
In the coffee?
No.
Was it sitting in the coffee?
No. Dude, now I'm a lot of breath. Dude, I was running. All right, that was probably good radio there. But with the magic of AI, I bet it all disappears.
It'll all disappear.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so where were we? Yeah, so that was my story about coffee in a cruiser. Coffee in a cruiser.
You could write a book about that, probably.
Probably. This is Low Expectations, episode 15, Gary.
Dude, 15, big 1-5.
Yeah, we haven't recorded for a little bit because our schedules got jacked up and we actually had to pull something out of the archives from our patrons only archives back in 2023, beginning of 2023.
Okay.
And we put that out to the people. So, and then we had another patron only episode that we released a couple weeks ago. So you and I were on behind the mics for that. So, but if you're not a patron, you didn't hear that patron only episode. And we're probably going to have another one coming out soon.
Oh yeah. We're definitely going to do it. Become a patron.
Become a patron. Go to diakonosacc.com, hit the support tab.
$1 a month, man. That's easy.
No, you can't say $1. You can do $1 a month, but $1 a month won't get you patron access. $5 or more a month.
So why would somebody just give $1 a month?
I don't know. They're suffering under the Biden regime. They can only afford $1.
Okay.
You can still support the podcast for $1 a month. But you'll get our appreciation, a thank you.
All right.
That's it. Like that's what your $1's worth.
Okay.
A thank you, and you feel you're part of the family,
part of the family,
part of the support family, the community, the small community.
Yeah. Hey, but it's a good community.
Yeah. So we're trying to pump out some more patron only episodes. Yeah. I wish we could do episodes every week. I wish we could do multiple episodes every week.
I wish we could do one in the morning and one in the evening.
Wow. Every day.
It'd be like morning and evening with Low Expectations. I don't know.
We'd have to keep them a lot shorter. I guess we could.
That would be nuts, dude.
Dude, there's no way I could keep up with
That'd
that.
be a lot. I mean, you're a full-time dad.
Right. And husband.
Yeah.
And we got jobs.
Yeah.
And we got sports.
Hobbies.
Yeah. So
But we
basically
try.
feel sorry for us. Feel bad for us.
Oh.
I want to be a victim. Did you? Oh man, I wanted to pull up this clip of what's the CNN announcer, Joy Reid.
Okay.
She is
Crazy.
off her rocker.
She's lost
She
it.
is nuts.
Okay.
But she did this whole thing after the attempted Trump assassination, which is one of the things which is probably the only thing we're going to talk about on this episode.
Right.
And then we
waited 14 days to talk
Hold
about
on.
this.
Yeah, right. And then we might also dive into the Sonia Massey shooting, but that's probably going to be patron only.
Oh,
So,
man, that might be the pull.
Yeah.
I
Listen,
think that's going to be a good conversation.
that's going to be a good conversation, but you're going to miss it if you're not a patron. $5 a month. That's all it takes. Anyways, back to Joy Reid. So after the attempted assassination on Trump,
Yeah.
she went on this rant about crying about how Trump might use this to portray himself as a victim. And her whole rant was so perfect. I was like, this is exactly what she's literally putting to words what I've been saying for a while, which is victimology, being a victim is like currency in our culture. And she's crying that the Republican nominee, Trump, is going to use this to portray himself as a victim when he's not really a victim. She's a victim and this person's a victim and Biden's a victim, but he's going to use it. So like she was mad because she felt like Trump might have been edging in the victim category.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, this is you're literally voicing exactly what
That's
I've been
hilarious.
saying. She's off her rocker.
Yeah.
So
He hasn't used it too much, I don't think.
yeah, I mean,
You're going to use it.
dude, I don't care what you think about Trump. The guy's a beast.
What do you mean?
You take rounds at a rally.
Bro, it was
Listen.
an earshot. Come on.
No, hold on. Let me finish it.
I'm just kidding.
You take rounds at a rally.
Yeah.
Okay. You get up. You start bossing your Secret Service agents around,
But you can because they're smaller than you.
and then that iconic photo with his fist in the
Yeah.
air and him yelling "fight, fight,
Blood all
fight."
over his face.
Blood. I mean, listen, the guy's
classic,
a
dude.
beast, and I don't think people appreciate this either. If you've been shot at, okay,
Yeah.
and then 2 days later was the RNC.
Yeah.
2 days later, he's marching into the RNC. You could tell he was still affected by this. The guy just keeps going.
Yeah.
The guy just keeps going.
And he's old. I mean, he's not young.
He's 78?
Yeah. That's old.
A lot of people would fold under that. Listen,
Lots of people would.
lots of people would fold under that. Listen, if you're a cop and you get shot at, you're off work for weeks while they investigate it.
Weeks.
Sometimes months, depending
Yeah.
on the situation. But you're off. And let me tell you, you need that time to regroup. Like
Right.
it's pretty like
Intense. Yeah.
And so I don't care what you think of him. Like the guy's a beast, man.
Yeah.
Like,
He keeps going.
he keeps going. Like to have that reaction and then go into the RNC.
Yeah.
And then did you see what he's doing here coming up? I don't know when.
He's going back.
He's going back to Butler.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time this is out, he'll be back in Butler. He's going back to Butler to do another rally.
The same location? I would. I would go to the exact
I'm
same
guessing.
spot.
I'm guessing he's going
I
to
would
the same
probably get
location.
up on that roof where the shooter was and do my speech from there. Standing on his
Dominate the shooters.
dominate the shooter's position. I'm like, make me a platform right here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, we got to get into it. I mean, here's the thing. You're right. We waited 14 days?
I think 13, 14 days.
13,
it's 2
14
weeks after,
days.
yeah.
But I think that's part of what you see happening in our world is people demand answers immediately. So when this happened, one of my first thoughts, like I got a text from a friend, so I didn't see this live. Then we started watching the news after the kids went to bed and we're watching like news footage of it and everything. One of my first thoughts was, oh, Gary and I should be talking about this. We need to get this out. And then I'm like, why? Why do we feel that we have to like give our opinion on things? Like we have this thing going on in our culture where you feel like you have to respond. You have to say something about it. You have to post something about it. You have to let people know your opinion about something. I don't know what that is. Probably pride. I think it's pride.
Yeah.
Like you think people actually care what you think about something.
Right. And we know our listeners love to hear what we say.
Right.
Or they're just entertained either way.
Yeah, but it just struck me. I was like, why is one of my first thoughts that I need to make comments about this, that I need to beat everyone else to the punch to like draw conclusions and show my outrage about this.
Hey, if you're a listener and you think we should have talked about this earlier, hit us up on the socials and say, hey guys, we wanted to hear your voices over all of the other loudmouths.
They don't care. Do you realize every time you say something like that, hey, listener, hit us up. Do you realize how many times a listener has hit us up and answered your question?
How many times?
0. What? No one has ever responded.
So then why do we even do it?
Because you're wasting time. You're wasting seconds here on this podcast.
Dude, it's kind of sad that doesn't happen. Like it kind of makes me feel a certain way.
Yeah, you're a victim. You're a victim of...
Yeah. I'm putting out all this good content, making people laugh, but people literally can't like get on their phone and say, Anthony's an idiot. You guys should have done this. Like literally say that. Anthony's an idiot. You guys should have talked about this the day of the shooting.
My sister-in-law did tell me that I was on vacation with my whole extended family, and my sister-in-law told me to tell you she said hi. You don't even know her.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I love that.
She's like, I feel like I know Gary.
I feel hugged.
Okay.
That's awesome.
So there you go. You know who you are.
Well, I can't wait to meet her someday, hopefully.
All right.
So we're going to talk about this thing? Or
yeah, we're going to talk about... Wait, here's the thing. Here's how I want to start this episode, though.
Okay.
So this stuff really like what's going on in our world, it like really affects me. I know it shouldn't. You're looking at me like I'm just a terrible...
no, I don't think terrible. It's just, it's different for me because I don't feel that way.
It doesn't. So you're like, oh, Trump almost got assassinated. Oh, the opening ceremonies at the Olympics was a complete disaster, fire, satanic, ritual, trans. Like this stuff. I'm just like, I watch this stuff, and it's not that I'm surprised by it.
Yeah,
it's our world, it's our culture, but I don't. Yeah, it does like bother me at times. Like I'm just surprised. Like you do a much better job just being like, well, whatever. Yeah. Or maybe you don't and you just say you do.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll tell you this. I got hit up by a buddy when the Trump assassination happened. And like I started watching it because I didn't have anything better to do. So I actually had some feelings there, maybe one or two. I was like, whoa, like really?
Mm-hmm.
And then it moved away. Like, but I'm a simple guy, dude. I don't have like.
But you don't feel the heaviness of it. You don't feel the heaviness of this stuff.
I do, but it's not my weight to bear. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
There are lots of things that I bear that I shouldn't.
Right.
But the world system type things, I literally can't.
Yeah.
Like I know I can't bear it.
Right.
So it's
that's good. I need to.
I know
more about
like this verse has been popping up in my head. I think it's in 1 Timothy. I know I'm not fearful or whatever because I know in whom I have believed.
Ooh,
you know what I mean?
That's a good one.
I think it's 1 Timothy 1. Maybe I'm not. But anyway, so that's one of the things that have been like in my head. I know in whom I have believed. I don't have to fear because in reality it's probably fear. It might boil down to
I think
pride, fear. You don't want to see it go this way. You don't want your kid. So there's the unknown, right? Like if he does get assassinated or if whatever. It's just like it's that fear. It's of the unknown. It's fear of other things.
It's probably exposing an idol in my heart, like an idol of like. I think for me, it's like a grief over like. I guess I never in my wildest dreams thought that we would be at the places we're at as a country.
Yeah. And because you long for it to not be like that.
Correct.
Which is a great longing and we should all have that longing and you want to fight against it.
Right.
The problem is like, and maybe you can do a great job of fighting against it. It's just a hard fight and I don't have the shoulders to do that.
Right.
And maybe I should, maybe that's a fault of mine,
Right. And I think it also might be an idol. And the way of life that has historically been my experience in the United States, our way of life.
Yeah, God, family, work.
Yeah, country, that sort of thing. And so you see that going away, and you feel like you're losing, not losing God, but you feel like you're losing the country. You feel like you're losing your way of life. You feel like you're losing a future for your kids. Like, but it's an idol. Like it can become an idol in your heart. So that's all I'm saying. Maybe in my own heart, it's exposing an idol. That doesn't say that we shouldn't push back against that. We shouldn't, talk truth and everything like that. It's what we do here, but or what we try to do.
Yeah. Dude, we're just spitballing, man. I love it.
But I would say one thing that over the past, months, years, one thing that I have been distinctly aware of in my own life is obsession with feelings. Like we are obsessed with our feelings.
Yeah.
Like we are driven by our appetites, driven by our feelings. And we as Christians get even caught up in that. Like this drive by, driven by our feelings. And I don't know, I can't remember. I know I've said it before. It might have been R.C. Sproul. I can't remember, but I heard a pastor once say, or Alistair Begg maybe, don't base your life on your feelings. Like base it on what do you know? Like not how do I feel, but what do I know? And so I was feeling a certain way with all this stuff going on, the assassination attempt, like other stuff going on in the world. And I came across this verse one morning and I was like, wow, I needed this. It's 1 Chronicles 29:11. It says, "Yours, O Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the victory and the majesty, for all that is in the heavens and in the earth is yours. Yours is the kingdom, O Lord. You are exalted as head above all." So you brought up your verse. I brought up that verse. Listen, that's what we know. So it doesn't matter how I feel. Like I can feel a certain way and I can ask the Lord to help me with those feelings and try to push back against those feelings and see maybe if they're exposing idols in my heart. But what I need to do is ground myself in what I know. And what do I know? I know that verse. I know that God is in control. He's sovereign. People on the God small g of this world will do what he's going to do. We're fighting against evil. We're in evil days. They might even get more evil, but God's in control. Yeah. And God has final say. So
there are no, I always love this. There's no rogue molecules, not even one molecule in the most minute, like system, right? Molecule wise, and in the most like large scale, gigantic systems, like the universe, right? Like the stars, like the Milky Way, like all of those are literally held in place by the sovereign king, the creator of all things.
Right.
So like that is wild to me. And just like he can do what he wants. And like, who are we to question him?
Yeah.
And we can know that like ultimately it's for his glory and for his people's good.
Yeah.
So that's wild. I'm like,
and that's
you can rest
word.
And you can rest in that.
Right.
It's not easy. And often, because we are people who have feelings.
Right.
So when something terrible happens, we ought to feel, but we have to go back to what do we know? I think that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been given our feelings and our emotions by our creator.
Yeah.
But those cannot drive us. Those we can't trust them.
Yeah, we don't rest in the feelings. We can't trust them.
We can't trust them. And everything, a lot of the evil you see is driven by feelings. I feel a certain way about who I am. I feel this. Yeah. I feel this. I feel that. And people tend to be driven by that. And so I think it's just a good reminder. Yeah, but what do I know?
Right.
Like I can read a verse like that and I don't necessarily immediately feel a certain way, but I know that to be true. So concentrate on what you know, and the Lord, by the power of the Holy Spirit, will bring those feelings in line with what you know,
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was like, before we start this episode, I just need to start with that. Because we talk about some heavy stuff, dark stuff.
Yeah.
And Lauren the other day was like, she's like, I just feel like you get, between your job, actually, being on the street and then you're doing this podcast, like all you're putting in front of yourself is all this negative stuff. And I was like, you're right. Maybe we need to start out with a different thing here.
I like it.
So
And in reality, like we're going to talk about the Trump man, I can't even say that word. I'm going to have to say it somewhere else.
assassination.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say.
I'll help you.
What was I saying? Oh, like this is heavy. Like I don't like it's sometimes we just brush by that.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally a person got into a position, like forethought to like get into a position to take a shot, multiple shots at a former US president who is a candidate for presidency currently. Like that's like we ought to like pause there and just be like, wow,
Right.
it's heavy.
Right.
And we just like, I mean, the media, we just brush right by it.
Right.
But that is some evil, wicked stuff just to get to that spot before he pulls the trigger.
Right.
Like that is like normal people don't do that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a wicked thing. It's a vile, it's a terrible thing. No matter if it was President Biden or former President Trump, like that doesn't really matter.
Right.
It's the forethought of that, but they are powerful people,
right?
And they have held or currently do hold extreme positions of authority.
Right.
So that's wild. Like we can't just rush past the fact that, this did not happen and blah, blah, blah. Like,
yeah. I think one thing I was thinking about yesterday was this idea of evil, good and evil. And I was just thinking about when you have evil, it means that there is good. But what is that good? Like, everyone thinks that good is something different. We as believers know that our good, our hope is God and his son Jesus. That's our hope. But even the presence of evil, I was like, pushes people to know that there's something better. There's something good. Mm-hmm. So like I was thinking about this specifically in light of the opening ceremonies of the Olympics.
I didn't know we were talking about this, so I didn't do any show prep. No, I saw Celine Dion singing, and I was like, okay, that's great, and I walked away. And then there was like some fiery thing going up in the air. And then I go to Jack. I go, man, I hope that thing doesn't burn up. The fire, like the heat's going to rise. Like, why wouldn't it?
So I didn't even watch the opening Olympics. I was just following it on my X feed.
Okay,
and there was definitely a huge drag queen trans push at different parts in the opening ceremonies.
Let's talk about that another time because I want to like watch this. I want to know what I'm talking. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
I'm just trying to make a point. I'm not getting into it. I'm just trying to make a point. So one of the things they did was they had drag queens and LGBTQ people, and they had a kid in there, people in various forms of undress, and they staged, the famous painting of the Lord's Supper.
Yeah.
They staged that with all kinds of ridiculousness. So it was, drag queens, and there was a kid in this picture, and they all tried to pose.
What's funny to me is why.
Right.
Like there's a reason why, but like literally why. You have your own thing. Why? Like it's almost like you're trying to just erase the fact that like there are some people who have different view. You know what I mean? Like it's wild to me.
Like why did you pick that to recreate with your depravity, with your sin? Like why did you recreate that?
Deception.
Right. So as I'm seeing this,
now that would make me mad. I'm getting a feeling right now that I want to.
It really upset me. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, this is proof, I believe by grace through faith. Okay. But when I see things like that, it actually bolsters my faith because I'm like, these people are literally, and when I say people, the evil that they're promoting, this evil is actually proving that my God is the way, the truth, and the life.
Right. Like, why would they pick on this God?
Right. They're not picking on.
Why pick on him?
They're not picking on any other religion.
And when we say pick on, it's like a gnat beating against a 1,000-mile high granite wall. It means nothing. He sits on his throne and laughs at the nations. He scoffs at them.
But this evil, this bolsters my faith because evil pushes back against truth.
Yeah.
And so when you see this level of just abhorrent, terrible sin, wickedness on full display, you know that what you're following is true.
Right.
It's not going to push it back against something that isn't true. It's the same thing like a conversation I had with a buddy of mine, who was using the Lord's name in vain. I'm like, the fact that you use the Lord's name in vain bolsters my faith, helps me know that I serve the one true God, because we don't use any other religion, any other
name,
God of any other religion in vain. We don't do it. So I don't know. I was encouraged by that. So as I saw these people, laid out in all their wickedness and recreating the Lord's Supper and basically spitting on that painting, that picture, that belief system, spitting on Christianity.
Right.
I was like, oh, okay. All right.
I like it.
It bolsters my faith.
Yeah. Give me more. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So anyways, man, we went off, but yeah, the main thing we want to talk about.
We're 25 minutes into this thing. We haven't.
We didn't even talk about the attempted assassination, but yeah. So, our drive was, we got to talk about this right away. And then, I think I even talked to you and I was like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
Just let it rest. Let the investigation go. We'll have more information. We'll hit it, on our next episode. And that's what we're doing. I mean,
we thought we'd have more information.
Right. Well, that's true.
I don't know that we've actually learned a whole lot more.
I thought, did you watch any of director Cheadle's
highlights?
Yeah. Amazing.
Unreal. Dude.
Just a complete refusal to provide any information.
Right. It's incompetency.
Right. And she did resign.
Yeah.
She finally resigned after a bunch of Congress men and women basically told her to her face that she's a terrible person. She needs to resign. They ripped her. But here's the thing.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides. Both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrats. But here's the thing. If you are in that position and you claim that the buck stops with you, then act like the buck stops with you.
I gotta sneeze. I think I hurt my back on that one. Where'd that come from?
I don't know.
You got pollen in your studio? What's happening?
So July 13th, if you live under a rock, obviously this attempted assassination on Trump happened July 13th, 6:11 p.m. in Butler, PA.
6:11.
6:11.
Wow.
That's the other thing I love.
Oh, dude, I can't wait to talk about this.
So 6:11, which if you go to, let's just do it. If you go to, if you go to Ephesians 6:11, that's
so this is another frustrating thing that Christians,
as a Christian,
sometimes Christians do really weird things. And it's just why are we doing this?
So someone, I don't even know who did this, but a pastor at the RNC brought this up, but it was out there on the interweb before that. But someone was like, oh, Trump was shot at 6:11. Let's look at Bible verses. Oh, Ephesians 6:11. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. Then starts plastering that on pictures of Trump and basically promoting Trump to the savior mentality that, listen, God spared his life.
Yeah.
God spared his life. Right. But that's not how you, not how you use scripture. You don't be like, oh,
so they literally picked, because there's lots of chapters and verses in each book, right? So they picked 6:11 of Ephesians. Chapter 6, verse 11
because Trump was
Ephesians.
shot at 6:11.
Right. So if you look at other verses, what's the other one you found?
Oh, I wanted to know why they didn't pick Genesis 6:11. It's weird that this verse wasn't picked. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and the earth was filled with violence. Why not use that verse?
Oh, why not? Yeah, because they picked whatever one they wanted. It's just silly, man. That stuff frustrates me too. I'll actually get more of a feeling for that type of thing. Sometimes I should.
Yeah.
That really, it just bothers me. It's just silliness, and it makes Christianity look silly.
Right.
And I don't like it.
It's not a proper use of the word.
It's not at all.
And that verse out of Genesis 6:11 was right before God wiped out the entire earth.
Right, with the flood.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyways, 6:11, July 13th, and we're talking about it now. So the FBI is conducting this investigation. I thought what's interesting, and one thing that was interesting to me, is the silence from them has been deafening. Now, FBI Director Wray was in front of the committee that's investigating this the other day. Again, he didn't really give much information. claimed Trump wasn't even shot, that it might have been shrapnel.
How do we know it was a bullet?
Right. And then the FBI came out after he said that and said officially, no, it was a bullet. He wasn't hit by shrapnel.
Right.
So that I'm just like, I don't understand. Who are these people that they're put in charge of these giant agencies?
They're bureaucrats, which
Right.
is the problem. Like if they would have got whoever the primary investigator is to go on camera, you probably get some actual good information.
Right. And I get it too. It's an active investigation. So you can't share everything. You can't. But some of the stuff that they were asking them to be open and honest about, they can share. And in that vacuum, you have what's happening now, which is these people just spewing these crazy conspiracy theories. And people are like, well, maybe that is true. You know, maybe that did happen. Maybe there was multiple shooters. Maybe the FBI told everyone to stand down, and, you know, maybe the Secret Service has embedded terrorists in it. Like all these crazy conspiracies that are being thrown out there, that happens because of the deafening silence of these people leading these investigations. You have to give statements. So the FBI released a press release the day after on the 14th. But then as of like a couple days ago, there was no press release from the FBI. They haven't released any information. Wray went in front of the Congress and talked about it, but didn't give any information. Cheadle went in front of Congress, didn't give him any information, then resigned, you know, and the stuff they're saying, like, oh, you know, the roof wasn't secure because it was sloped.
Right.
I mean, like, Sarah, do you hear yourself talk?
and to think that like no one's going to check.
Right.
Like, that's what's silly to me.
Right.
And that you're a terrible leader.
Right.
If you say something like that, you're a terrible leader because you're just an idiot. Like somebody is going to check what you say.
Right.
Especially in an incident like this.
Right. And what does that say about your people if you say, oh, we weren't on the roof, we didn't have the roof secured because it was sloped and it was I mean, what does that even say about your people? The
FBI has, or the Secret Service has unlimited funds, right? If they need something, they can get it. You can literally rent one of those like skiffs that like lift you up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
You could do that.
Right.
So like you could build your own tower.
And it's just, it's common sense. Like you and I, we're like simple cops.
Yeah.
We're, you know,
find bad guy, arrest bad guy. Like
we understand the importance of getting and keeping and securing high ground. That is a rudimentary, basic understanding of protecting high value assets and people.
Like that and distances.
Get the high ground.
And distances. Like figure out what looks scary.
Right.
You know what I mean? What's a scary thing? If someone wants to hurt someone, what's scary around here? It's just not hard.
Yeah, like and why wouldn't you have a drone up? Why wouldn't you? It's
nowadays, man.
It's wild to me the lack of just security at this place. Now, one of the latest reports, and this I actually believe because it was extremely hot on July 13th. I think it was in the mid 90s.
Okay,
here in PA. Supposedly, an officer was supposed to be on that roof, supposed to be covering that roof, a local officer. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't say a local officer. There's a report that someone doing security at the event, whether it was municipal police, state police, Secret Service, federal agents, whatever, was supposed to be on that roof, and they abandoned the post because it was too hot.
Okay.
I could believe that.
Sure.
Because cops are wimps.
Like, not even that. Be like, I'm not standing up here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you and I have both done security for a presidential.
Dude, I heard a story. They came in on a train. I think it was President Obama. He came off the train. No, it was President Trump. He came off the train and Secret Service was on the complete other end of, they didn't know what car he was in or whatever. So like, they were like running toward him because there was just like cops standing there while he got off the train, and he's shaking people's hands. So like they had zero clue where he was. Like it was just a train wreck.
But see, and that hasn't been my experience.
Okay.
Working with the Secret Service.
That was one time, a story I heard. I mean, I wasn't there.
Yeah. I've done it too. I've done two presidential.
We got a picture of us in front of what?
Marine One.
Marine One. Yeah.
Yeah. And we got to shake George W.'s hand.
That's right.
President George W. He shook our hands and stuff.
I had hair back then.
Yeah. But we do. We have you and I and the rest of our unit in from Marine One. But yeah, that time. And then there was a time, I can't remember. It might've been George W. flew into Lancaster County Airport and I was helping there as well.
Yeah.
And they put me out on the tarmac, and they said, listen, if you see people walking around out in on the field, just stop them, make sure that they're Secret Service. Like, this was at the briefing and everything. And I'm there on the tarmac, and I see two guys walking up a runway. They're in suits and stuff. I'm like, oh, these guys are Secret Service. And I'm like, but what if they aren't? Am I going to be that guy? So I actually stopped them, and they were like super cool. They didn't like working with Secret Service. I would say they're, in my opinion, some of the most laid back and humble federal agents. Like, I've worked with a lot of federal, agents from other federal agencies, and some of them have a chip on their shoulder. I get it. Like, we all have chips on our shoulder, but I stopped those guys and it was like, hey guys, and they showed me credentials, and then they were like, thanks, man. Really appreciate you, stopping us and
doing
making
your
sure.
job.
Yeah. So, but just that level of security. So like, my experience has been that there's just a high level of security. And I get it. President Trump's not a sitting president, but he still has a
detail with him.
And how do you, I think the biggest question for me is, okay, I'm sure that every time they do an event, there's suspicious people around that they're keeping an eye on. And I get it. You're not going to clear them off stage every time you just have a suspicious person. But there are reports that this was more than suspicious. Like, you had a guy with a rangefinder on the grounds. Like, why would you have a rangefinder? There's no valid reason to have a rangefinder. Then you're following the guy, then you lose the guy, then you have reports that someone's getting on a roof. Like, I don't understand. As soon as you get a report that someone is getting on a roof, like, pull Trump off the stage.
Or just delay it, right? Because he wasn't on long, right?
Or maybe just delay him getting onto you.
Secure this area here real quick.
Yeah. That's the wild thing to me. Like, why weren't certain steps taken to protect him? Like, why wouldn't you delay or pull him off the stage?
Right.
I don't
a simple thing.
I don't understand that.
Well, and he would fight back against that for sure. So, like, if you're going to make that decision as a Secret Service person, knowing who he is, he's not going to he's going to be like, no. He's going to yell at him.
Right.
Because he's a big guy too.
Right. Yeah.
And he's going to push back. So, like, to make that decision is like, once you pull the trigger, what I mean by that is, like, once you make that decision, you're going to do it. Like, that's not going to be easy, because you're going to get in trouble if there wasn't a threat,
Yeah.
So I can see that.
But based on what we know right now,
that was the right decision.
No one even did that. No one even had that conversation. No one pulled him off. Like, supposedly there were messages being shared. Like, hey, we've got a report of a guy on a roof, and, allegedly a local officer climbed on top of another local officer to peek up over on the roof. Bad guy swung his rifle on him. He ducked and fell. And then soon after that is when the shots were fired.
Right away.
Yeah. So again, and people are like blasting this municipal cop. I'm like, have you ever had a gun point at you?
And he fell off the roof.
It's a visceral reaction. Yeah. You're going to duck. And if you're standing on top of another officer to try to access the roof and you quick duck and you fall, like, I'm not going to fault a guy for ducking when a rifle's pointed at him. Like, that's a bad position. You're trying to get up onto a roof. The guy has high ground. The guy, you need to,
which is why it should have been secured before.
You need to secure that position. But yeah. So, who knows why all this happened? They're still doing the investigation and trying to figure it out and everything. But one thing that really came out during this was all this DEI stuff, diversity, equity, inclusion. Has that affected the ability of the Secret Service to do their job correctly? There was a lot of memes out about some of the women on this detail who we're assuming are Secret Service. I know not all the agents there were Secret Service, but I assume the ones that are actually like tasked with doing the guarding and covering him in a situation like this are Secret Service. So there were all kinds of memes out. There was that one lady, and this is so ridiculous. You have video, and then someone takes like this one shot of the one Secret Service female ducking, and they made a meme that she was like washing dishes and stuff.
Oh, that's so bad.
Dude, I was dying. I mean, you have to have a sense of humor with this stuff. But But yeah, so that's one lady was getting blasted.
Yeah,
She
couldn't put her gun in the holster.
Yeah, she couldn't get her gun in a holster.
Dude, she was stressed,
out
man.
of shape. She was stressed. She had no idea what she was doing. It just looked like she was maxed. So
I thought it was interesting when you're talking about that, if you're trying to do personnel security, and I'm not an expert at any of this stuff. It's just common sense, right? Like the people who came up on stage after he took the round to the ear and he falls, they could not have carried him. They didn't have enough strength. And then when he stood up, he's wide open again because you have small people assigned to him, that's not a fault on them. They can't help how tall they are. Get a different person. Right. Change the detail. Right. Obviously, I think President Trump needs larger men on his detail. Right. Or larger woman. Find a large woman. And that's 6'2", 6'3". You're probably not going to find that, but there's lots of 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" men that you can assign to this detail. Right. So I was just like, what are we doing here? And they couldn't have carried him if they had to. Right. Because they didn't have the strength.
I mean, some of the women on his detail were like a foot shorter than him. So when they stood him up, they're not covering him at all.
Not at all. Yeah, that one guy's like put his arm up, which is what they're trained to do. Right. Trump's a big guy. Right. Like he'd be hard to.
If you watch the attempted assassination of Reagan, if you watch that video and you watch the attempted assassination on Trump, you see two different responses. Like when Reagan happened, you literally it's amazing.
You couldn't even see him. Like he vanishes.
Yeah. And there's actually a agent, a Secret Service agent, I'm assuming it's agent, who turns and faces the gunfire and gets himself big and puts his arms up to like catch bullets.
Right.
Like I'm like the amount of mental, like, because that is not the normal response is to duck, to get low.
Yeah, exactly.
But to train yourself to literally get big and expose like all your front and like that takes a lot of training. It takes a lot of mental acuity to operate under stress. And it looked different than with Trump. With Trump, it looked like mass confusion, people who weren't big enough to cover him, people who weren't like working hard to protect him. Like I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say they weren't working hard to protect him. It just looked different.
Chaotic.
It looked chaotic.
Which is, I mean, that's normal, man.
What happens.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be super critical of the people that were there because, listen, that's tough. You do not know how you're going to react in a situation like that. You hope that your training kicks in. You hope that you've mentally thought about it and you can work through it under stress, but that's tough.
And it's real hard when, like, there hasn't been something like this since 1981. So you're talking.
Is that when Reagan?
So you're talking, what, 20, 40, 45 years?
Complacency.
Yeah, 45 years. Nothing's going to happen. Like, it's not going to be. And that's true of all police encounters.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That complacency is crazy. But a lot of this DEI stuff came out because a lot of the women on this detail were getting ripped. And in some senses, rightfully so. I think there definitely needs to be questions asked. And is these DEI policies, this 30 by 30, all this stuff, is that affecting the mission of the Secret Service? Are they able to perform and do what they're supposed to be doing? Or are they too caught up in trying to, have enough diversity, equity, inclusion? Like everyone's caught up in this DEI stuff. And so it's really interesting. There was a interview. So I guess the Secret Service has a podcast called Standing Post Podcast, and they had Lucius Hires on. And so who's Lucius? He is the equity director. He's the director of equity of the Secret Service. His name is Lucius Hires. And so I saw an article in Fox News, and then I watched this interview that he did on this podcast. Dude, it's wild. Some of the stuff he says, like from the article, the director of equity at the Secret Service, Lucius Hires III, calls it mission imperative and the ultimate goal to spread DI within the agency. And the agency hosting seminars on respectful use of pronouns. And I watched the podcast, and he does say things like this. In fact, his quote at the end of the podcast, he says, "Part of the things that we need to continue to do more of is be open and speak openly about diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility. When every one of us within the agency can say this is mission imperative, then we have achieved our ultimate goal. Think about that.
Yeah. Like the goal of the agency is that.
Yeah.
Versus,
mission imperative, ultimate goal
yeah,
is
wild.
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That doesn't seem like that should be a top goal.
That's like the like safety is our top priority. We were talking about that.
Yeah,
like
safety,
these companies who say safety is our top priority. No, it's not.
Right.
Like that's not your mission.
Right.
And that's what this guy's saying. I mean, if you think about that, you know, he also says like it's every action all the time, or he wants every agent to make this mission imperative in all the decisions they make. So literally, you want your agents, every decision they make, whether they are doing investigations, whether they're part of your uniformed unit, whether they're protecting people, you want them to constantly be weighing all their decisions on diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's wild.
That's really wild.
That's not going to help you do your job.
Yeah, and I don't really like. I know a little bit about DEI apparently now. DEIA for
I guess. Yeah.
What was that? Acceptance? Is that what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've added a letter to it. That's
no accessibility. I'm sorry.
Accessibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Everything needs to be accessible.
Yeah, it's just wild. Like, I guess, I mean, they would never say we're not trying to not hire the best person for the job.
Right.
But, and it's going to be a quiet but.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they would never say that.
Right.
It's just giving opportunity for others who are less fortunate or outcasts or different to have the opportunity to have the same type of job or life or, right?
Right.
Experience as someone else.
If you're going out and you're going to recruit, you're going to open up your recruitment field and try to recruit more people that, you know, whatever, you decide we don't have enough, you know, Asian people in our agency. So we're going to go out and try to go to places where there's a lot of Asian people and like recruit them. That's fine, but you can't. You're recruiting for a certain skill set. You're not recruiting for skin color, for, you know, your sexual identity status, your whatever. You're not picking something to get go recruit, but make sure you're recruiting for and getting people that can do the job, not just getting the job because they look a certain way or believe a certain thing.
They check a box or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what it reeks of. From the article, it said during the podcast, the equity director outlined how every action at the Secret Service should be informed by DEI and claimed the ideology makes the organization stronger. Every employee should consider how every action is reflective of equity, according to the director. Like every action.
That's wild.
Like you have to listen to these people.
I
Like,
don't even know how does that actually help?
it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I guess it doesn't. Yeah.
Like if you're so focused on diversity and equity and inclusion and accessibility, and you want that to determine every action you do, then you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
You're not doing your job.
It's wild.
DEI is every action every day, he said during the podcast. So the opportunity for improvement for every employee within the Secret Service is to ask themselves, what action are you doing every day? Every day. Like this.
That's awesome. That's so wild, man. But listen, are you going to keep going?
No, go ahead.
Because ultimately, like we're like poking fun at I mean, not poking fun, but we're like bringing to light some of the same stuff everybody else knows and everybody else has been talking about. But ultimately, it's that shooter's fault. He drove the actions. So like there might be mistakes and things that the Secret Service can learn, and we can learn to actually secure a roof that's 120 meters away. Like we should probably secure that roof.
Right.
Like that's an easy after action thing that you can do from now on out. But ultimately, it's the shooter's fault.
Right.
He chose to do these wicked things.
Right.
So like, I'm not mad at the Secret Service for their job or like who did what or the sniper that didn't do this or the cop that like, okay, you tried to do something.
Right.
But you probably next time they're going to do it better.
Well, I would sure hope so.
Or do it a little differently.
Yeah, I would
and maybe
sure
they
hope
won't
so.
think about DEIA the next time in every decision they make, and they'll let's just secure the area.
Right. Yeah.
Let's just do that. I don't know.
I just think, yeah, I totally agree with you. But if your mission, your primary goal, your primary driving force in how you're hiring is DEI, then you don't have your eye on the prize.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
Yeah.
your goal should not be diversity, equity, inclusion. Your goal should be getting the best people for the job.
Yep.
And if that's a woman, so be it.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's again, by and large, law enforcement is a masculine job. Okay. So there's not many women that are cut out for that type of work.
And I would even say like personal protection is a masculine job.
You need big guys.
You should be able to carry the person that you're
right.
And that, like with President Trump, that's not easy. Like that's hard to find. Like I don't think I'm qualified for that.
Right.
It's going to be someone younger, someone with big giant arms, big huge backs. Like, you know what I mean? It's those guys that are lifting weights, probably a CrossFit guy. You know what I mean? That's probably who they're looking for. Not someone like me. Like I'm not qualified for that job, but DEI might get me that job.
You can carry Trump.
Not by myself.
Not by yourself. But yeah, I mean, that's and if you looked at Trump coming into the RNC, and did you see him walking into the Republican National Convention? His security detail looked a lot different.
Yeah.
It was all dudes, and they were all huge.
Okay.
Big enough to cover him.
So hopefully they learned from their mistake, which is huge, but like you probably shouldn't make that mistake at the beginning. And that's the problem with DEI or any other like agenda that you're pushing on agencies.
Right.
That's where mistakes happen. Let's do the right thing the right way.
Right. And that's why I have such a huge problem with like the 30 by 30 initiative.
Yeah.
You know, and listen, I did a whole thing on the 30 by 30 initiative on the Diagnostic Cops Calling podcast. If you go to season 2, episode 15, the 2-hour, 11-minute mark, you can listen to me talk about the 30 by 30 initiative because that is a Trojan horse. It's 30% women. These agencies are adopting 30 by 30. Secret Service has adopted this 30 by 30 initiative. Basically, it's the idea that 30% of our agency personnel will be women by 2030. Okay. That's the goal. That's the mission. Right. Not that we get the best people, but that we have 30% of our agency women by 2030. Okay. So you have these agencies adopting this initiative.
Not just Secret Service. We're talking police agencies all around the country.
My old agency.
Okay.
You know, the Lancaster City Bureau of Police.
Yeah.
They have adopted this initiative.
Right. Which they're not even close. I can tell you that.
And the reason they're not
and they're not going to be close.
No, reason they're not close is because generally speaking, law enforcement, military, you know, those types of jobs, generally speaking, are masculine jobs. And you're going to have some women who can do them.
Yeah.
Who can do it.
And do it well.
Yeah. And
better than some guys.
Better than some guys.
Yeah.
But by and large, a lot of women can't do the job or aren't cut out for the job.
Right.
But now what you're doing is you're making it mission number 1, priority number 1 to get people into a profession that they should not be doing. Right. Because that's the push. And the 30 by 30 initiative is a Trojan horse for all kinds of craziness. Again, if you go and listen to
your rant.
Well, no, it wasn't a rant. I dug into
no, it wasn't a rant.
I dug into their stuff, their literature, their, you know, what they're preaching and what they're saying. And it's wild. It's a Trojan horse to invite all this other stuff in. And the Secret Service is making no bones about it. They're going to pride events. They're trying to hire trans people. And like what's crazy to me is only a couple years ago, if you were trans, it was generally recognized that you probably had some mental health issues going on. If you believe you are something that you are not, it was common belief that you were struggling with mental health issues. And now it's accepted, celebrated. We want you on our agency. So you're actually asking people who are confused about who they are, even though they have sexual organs that tell them who they are, you're inviting them into, like, how is that going to work? Like, it's bizarre to me. Yeah. It's bizarre that you would invite people that are struggling with mental health issues. And I know I get crucified for saying that, but if you are dealing with someone and they're like, I love how people are, you know, think this is where it's going to stop. It's not going to stop here. we're already dealing with people who think that they're animals. You know, they're acting like they're animals. They're dressing up like they're animals. You know,
Right.
Something is wrong there. Something is happening mentally with that person. Like that's not normal behavior.
Yeah. Deception, being deceived.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And now to say, well, we want to bring people like that who are struggling in that way into our agency. That's priority number one, to get more diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility. I mean, it sounds great, but it's not, it can't be your mission. Yeah. As an agency like the Secret Service, your mission is not diversity, equity, inclusion. Your mission is to protect your high value people. It is to protect the president. It's to do investigations, you know, because they have a whole investigative wing. Yep. They have a uniform. That's not your mission, you know. That's what's crazy to me. That's not your mission. Like the 30 by 30 initiative is wild to me.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Hey everyone, as you could probably tell, that was not the end of my conversation with Gary. We continued to talk about the 30 by 30 initiative. We also gave some predictions for the upcoming presidential election. And finally, we broke down the controversy surrounding a recent officer-involved shooting of a woman by the name of Sonia Massey. Listen, if you want to hear that content, you can. It's for our patrons only, and you can become a patron for as little as $5 a month. If you go to diakonosacc.com, that's www.diakonosacc.com, click on the support tab, and then click the link to become a patron for as little as $5 a month. You get access to patron-only content, you get early access to all our episodes, and you get to support us financially to keep this podcast going. So, if you want patron-only content and you want to hear the end of this episode and our ongoing conversation, go to diakonosacc.com, hit the support tab, hit the link, become a patron for as little as $5 a month, get early access to all our episodes, and get patron-only content.